Howdy. Today we're going to go over some quick install tips for the beta version of the Backdraft Catalyst. This is a Gen 1. This is essentially a high-volume prototype that I got for the beta testers who are testing the Backdraft Phoenix, which is a budget HPA engine that I've been working on for the better part of 2 years. As we're nearing release, these are going to be going through some changes as well as these engines, but they are available for purchase for anyone who wants to test and be a part of helping make this engine into actually a viable product. For the most part, it's ready for release, but, you know, late stage testing has to happen at some point, and so here we are. These FCUs were designed by AccuFor in India. I hired a US-based company and then they outsourced without telling me, so I had a lot of trouble getting these actually made since there were middlemen and language barriers and obviously time zone differences. Nothing could be done during the business day, and anyway, I'm glad that these are finally out and functional, but we will be making some improvements without AccuFor. They're no longer a part of the picture because shady business practices seem to be the common problem that I'm running into. Anyway, the biggest issue with installing these, and this is really the main issue that I'm going to be going over today, is these solder joints. As you can see, they aren't really pretty, but the main thing is that they should not be here. Because with having these metal contact points, 2 of which are for the battery, when you put these in the engine, it's actually making contact with a piece of bare metal. So that needs to be insulated before you can install it. In order to do that, I'm going to take cuticle cutters. You could also use fingernail clippers or actual dedicated flush cutters, but these are the cheapest option and, in my experience so far, the best option for tackling this problem, because even the flush cutters can't quite get as close. So what you need to do is go at every solder joint with the cuticle cutters and just trim it flat. I like to do it from 2 different angles. So this is me going at one angle first, and then I'm going to go from this angle as well, just to try and get any leftover shavings. It seems like I got all of these pretty good. That one had a little extra. Cool. And now if you look at that, that is very flat in comparison to something like this. If you compare the solder joints, steady the camera. If you compare the solder joints on both of these, this one is much flatter. The next step that we're going to want to go over is insulating. Another thing you can do, if you have a soldering iron and you want to smooth those out, you can, but you just have to be careful that you don't accidentally bring up and add more solder, because then you have something that just needs to be trimmed again, and at that point you're just adding more work for yourself. But that is essentially, I think trimming it is really the best option. The next thing you're going to want to do is take a little bit of electrical tape. I've got a roll here, and to insulate it, I'm just going to cut a little strip and slap that right over those contact points. We did have one issue with one other beta tester who he did not, he did insulate it with electrical tape, but because he left some of those contact points, some of those solder joints were a little sharp, and it ended up poking through and still shorting out. So you just want to make sure that those solder joints are flat enough that when you put the electrical tape over it, it's not going to poke through and still make contact with the bare metal of the gearbox. So that is essentially all the prep work that needs to be done in order to install the FCU itself. There is one more issue are not necessarily an issue, but with some gearboxes, the selector plate will not actually reach the switch completely. This one, it's hard to see. It is touching the switch, but not a lot. And this one obviously is missing the metal contact plate, so this is a little thinner than a normal selector plate. But that is still something that can be addressed. I just spilled my tin everywhere. Nice. So what I'm gonna do in order to address that and make this a little thicker, just to make sure that it contacts, is also more electrical tape. I've found that basically a strip that is like 1.5 inches long and then cut in half is just about right. And you just wrap it around like once or twice. That's really all. Once or twice is plenty of extra thickness. So now if I hold that in place and slide that in, if you look carefully, I'm missing back here, my bad. There we go. If you look, you can see that the switch is getting hit. It's kind of difficult to see, and if it's not hitting it on yours, you can always add more electrical tape, but for the most part, that's all you're going to need to do in order to get this installed and fully functional. I have a dedicated video for going over programming. So yeah, thank you for watching. That should be everything else. If you are just a viewer and you see improvements that could be made, feel free to comment them below. And if you're a beta tester and you ran into any additional issues, also please comment those below, and I'll be sure to add additional fixes to the description or just make an updated video. So thank you for watching. I hope you guys have a good day.